Okay. So, I'll give you the most simple that I could think of to, I guess it's pretty complicated. So, sonic branding is the strategic and creative, holistic approach to a brand's music, sound, and voice, and leveraging it across all relevant touch points. And those of you who heard Diana earlier, and those of you who've heard other people before, understand that you're all right in a way. Those are touch points. So if you're doing a visual identity, you have a visual identity, and you have colors, and you have fonts, and you have photography, and you have placement and typography. There's all different places that you do that visual identity. That's what we do with sound. We do sonic branding, and that's what it is. It's way more than a jingle. It's way more than a logo. It's creating a unique identity, working, researching, discovering, strategizing, and finding exactly what that brand stands for, what's going to make that brand stand out. And it's music, sound, voice, vibration. So we are in a sound-first world as opposed to just a voice-first world. And the reason that Pete likes when I speak is because I deal in all four of those mediums. I just give you a very, very brief introduction. I started taking piano lessons when I was 3, started flute when I was 8, started voice at Carnegie Hall when I was 15, in my rock band days, studied psychology, worked with kids that were deaf and blind and did music therapy with them, and played in a band, but I realized that what I really liked to do was the holistic side. That my brand's mission statement is Audiobrain advocates for the use of music, sound, voice, and vibration to promote well-being. So some of our projects are, that you might know, is we did the sonic branding and all the sound for the Xbox 360. I've been the music supervisor for 10 Olympics with NBC. We do all of Holland, America's onboard experience except the shows to make sure everything is on brand. I feel so far away from you guys. To make sure that everything is on brand. We've done, anybody have a UE Boom speaker or Jaybird? We did the sonic branding for that. And these are very unique experiences, and it takes a lot of crafting. It follows exactly what a visual identity, a branding strategy would follow. We do research, we do testing. It's way more, and it's right now like the hot thing. If Google sonic branding and see how many articles are in there on it. It's called audio branding, sonic branding, sound branding, but that's what it is. It's not just that one thing. It's creating what I like to call like the sonic Crayola crayons. Like these are what this brand is going to sound like. These are the elements that are going to make the brand. We work with the brand to find out what they stand for, what their personality is, what makes them different. And we have a series of tools to find out and work with the client to find out what they're comfortable with. Okay? And then at that point, we do concepting work. And what we do is most brands will put 200 words on the wall, and it really comes down to between 3 and 5 characteristics. So, we're not interested in what I like to call the table stakes. If you're a bank and you're secure, we don't really care about that. You should be. That doesn't make you unique, right? We're looking for the things that make a brand stand out and make a brand memorable, make a brand, make people care about the brand. Now, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've done IBM ThinkPad, and I've done so many different projects, all of the branding for the New York Giants, the original Major League Soccer, and we've also done YouTube Kids, and we've also done surgical robotics. It's our same process. It's applied to any industry. But what's important about it is that at the end of the day, you have sonic branding guidelines the same way you would have visual guidelines. And it's not Intel Inside, Intel Inside, Intel Inside, or anything like that. It's a robust series of sounds that you could then draw product sounds, music. You can do different styles. We do things internationally, and once we get our framework in place, someone could call from Dubai and say, can you take what you did for London and lose the guitar and replace it with an oud? So over time, it becomes very cost effective and very, very memorable. So if we're working with a brand, we want to make sure that we understand completely. We live and breathe that brand. My composers are all in-house because the stuff we work on is really confidential because those products are not out yet most of the time. We do full composition. We do a lot of work in sports, and we do a lot of work in product sonification. We also do a lot of work in pharmaceutical. We do a lot of work in a lot of areas. We're pretty well recognized globally, but we're the compass. We need to hear from you. This is what I stand for. I teach at FIT, and I mentor at School of Visual Arts, and I started the first sonic branding course, I think, in the world 10 years ago. So that's about me, and that's the end of that story, unless anybody has any questions. Yes. I kind of want to come down there. I really do.
In the previous presentation, the presenter said with 6 cubes you can make almost 1 billion different permutations. So with 8 notes, can you make enough different permutations to satisfy every single company in the world?
We don't have 8 notes. What we do when we do our concept, it's a long form.
I was just saying abstractly, because if you limit yourself to 8 notes, you have enough for the whole world.
Not to do a million different things, but certainly to do plenty. But those 8 notes are not what we end up with. We end up with a whole landscape. So the best way that I could think of to explain it is, if you think of it, what we do is we put the foundation under the house. So when you're a company, you'll do, this one will do event music, and this one will do music on hold, and this country will do music on hold, and this one will do voice branding, and this one will do voice branding. But what we do is we unify the whole thing so that the brand of the company has like a unified sound to it. And like I said, and those of you have a UE boom, there's so many different ones, and the little ones sound different than the mega boom, and it's won many awards. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Whirlpool and KitchenAid initiative that we did, but that washing machine got picked up by The Atlantic, got picked up by the Times UK. It was just not what you would expect to hear out of a washing machine. And it was really satisfying for them, very, very successful. So that's what we do. We find they call it the audio DNA, but it's really more like the blueprint for that brand. And I'll give you an example, is that I'm extremely, let's say one of my 4 characteristics is dependable. My dependable is I'm very assertive, projects are going to get done on time, my guys are all signed off, the talent is all signed off, everything is buttoned up, we have a 100% return rate. I have a composer who's dependable, and sometimes I don't even know he's in work because he's so quiet and so seamless. His dependable would sound different than mine. So we have a series of tools that we use with the client. Once we establish what the personality traits are, we look at the competitors. When we were doing Whirlpool, there were 2 very big competitors, and they both had the same stock music in their commercials. So we want to make sure that what we create is really unique and special and authentic. And if you do that, you can go anywhere from there. You can make endless assets. And I'll give you some examples. You have a sound logo, you could do a jingle, you could do executive walk-ons. You could have a room warming soundtrack, which I had wanted to play in here when people file in. We have event packages. We have product sonification, implementation. We build servers. We do legal. We do supervision, which is selecting other material. So we handle from top to bottom. We're extremely technical. We optimize for devices. And that's what we do. And that's what sonic branding is. It's not just a logo and it's not just a jingle. It's holistic. It's making sure, just like Diana said, like 4 people said it inside today, you want to permeate it everywhere. And it's not just the same 4 notes or 8 notes or anything. It's a feeling. Because right now, the reason it's so popular, and I'm doing it 25 years, but the reason it's so popular right now is technology is driving it. But when you do voice, you do conversational AI, it's going to be sitting side by side with sounds. It may be sitting side by side with music if it's on hold. You have to think of these other touch points. I heard something today, and I'm not going to single anything out, but it was fantastic. But I wasn't too happy with the product sounds. But the AI part was great. When they're unified, people will remember you. They may be different. They may be different tones. There may be a rock version. There may be a Latin version. Whatever the brand needs, we work with them. But the most important thing is that we get it right, and we make sure that we're formulating sound that's going to last for a very long time. I mean, the Xbox 360, the one that we did was the 360. Everyone that followed since then has had that Xbox 360 sound incorporated in it. And we did, the Killers played the party because they align with the brand. We did the Shrine Auditorium. We did the MTV specials. Do you know what I mean? It's a whole story. You're storytelling. And you think of yourself, and I tell my students this all the time, think of yourself and think of every time someone thinks of you, they think of this sound. Every time the phone rings, they think it's your sound. You want it to be connected to you. You want it to be authentic to you. That's what sonic branding is. So I'm going to stop there first and see if there's any questions, And then I'm going to come down there because I want to be with you. I don't want to be up here. If that's...
One comment.
Yes.
The Netflix sound that you get, would you also consider that as sonic brand?
Yes. I consider Netflix sounds, not just the one sound, the broadcast sound, the film sound, everything they've done collectively is sonic branding. And they've done, you guys okay if I sit here? Because this is so much more comfortable than me. It's like I'm not up on a podium. You know, I want to just be with you guys. Yes.
I've done many projects where I've started primarily with visual identity.
Yes.
This audio identity. How, in your opinion, what is the difference from starting with audio than, say, if a brand was probably to go with a more traditional, kind of inspired by TV type approach?
It doesn't make as much of a difference. The place that we come in usually is we're usually hired directly by the client. So Holland America read about us in Fast Company. Holland America hired us. NBC Olympics hired us. Usually agencies, sometimes, rarely, but sometimes hire us. But often the clients come directly to us. Logitech hires us, or, we've worked with so many brands around the world. I find the best place for us to come in is at the very beginning, because we are branding. And the best experience on that front was the Xbox 360, because we came in when there were about 180 potential Xbox 360s sitting around a conference room. And they hadn't even picked which one it was going to be yet. So we had a seat at the table from the get-go. And as they were doing the animation, as they were discussing the brand points, we were in every meeting. And they did it the right way. They had the branding team, and they had the creative team and the product team. And when we did 80-piece orchestra for Major League Soccer, they wanted to get it right. And they invested the money in it to make sure that it would be as grand as the European leagues and the leagues around the world. Because the American, when I went to the first MLS game here, it was at RFK Stadium, and it was probably 1/10 of the stadium filled. And now, look where Major League Soccer is in the United States now. I mean, it's gigantic. And by the second year, people were singing the song and chanting it in the stadium in LA. That's a really gratifying feeling when you hear something, or the Giants get their Super Bowl rings a long time ago to your music. So that's what we do. So we do discovery, everything we can get. Drown us in anything. And then strategize. Okay, this is what we found, and this is where you're kind of lying. And then we take the characteristics and we make these sound mood boards. And it could be something as simple as, you don't have to be a musical person, you just have to know your brand. That instrument feels like us. That tempo feels like us. That's too slow, that's too old, that's too young, that's too ethnic, that's too, we want it, this way or that way, and we get a lot of feedback, and then the composers start writing concepts. And they will write the words that suit the brand. So they're not just writing music like a production company. We do testing. when we did the McDonald's kiosks, it was crazy because it's a little strange when you're sitting there and they're testing your sound. The fascinating thing about sound is it affects all the other senses. So in that, they said, okay, so there were like 4 different kiosks, and one was the one that was going to be the self-serve that we hoped that they would choose. And they said, in that one, the colors are more vivid. The colors were not brighter. The sound was properly aligned. They said, in that one, it took me less time to order. Didn't take less time to order. The sound was properly aligned. They said, in that one, there's more animations. The food's going in the bag. There's this. They saw more things. Now, in all of these, they're not mentioning the sound. But the only thing that's affected, the only thing that nothing changed visually. Nothing. So when you do it right, it's fantastic, and it works out really, really well. So I'm going to stop for a second and see if anybody has any questions. Okay, so I think I'm like I said, I'm doing this 25 years. Our process is easy. It's fun. We've built the tools to make it easy and fun. Our job is to do the heavy lifting. Your job is to get us the materials. There's 2 points. One is getting us materials, and we're going to do our own research too, but a mission statement, a style guide, anything like that. My position on that, and I know that probably so many of the production of the sonic branding firms, so-called sonic branding firms, because there's so many new ones and they don't do what we do. Not anywhere near the level we do. My position is you own your music. We don't come back to you 3 years later and re-up. Nobody does that if they build a house for you. We don't do that. You own your music, period. It's your identity. Okay? That's how I feel about it. If you want to use it in a different place, and we create something as video bookends, opening a video and closing a video, and then you want to use it for something else, do it. You own it. You have no rights, no royalty issues, no license issues. And also, what people don't realize is for like a couple $100, we'll help you set up a publishing company, which is just really a collection agency, because when it's used in a commercial, you're the owner. So you get paid royalty. And many, many, many years ago, brands weren't as savvy to that part of it as the creators were. But it's great. It's just a little extra perk. You get the quarterly checks, and depending on how big your brand is or where it's going, or if it's being played on, all the different vehicles now, come on in. Hi there. Hi. That's my feeling. My feeling is you own it. I will never re-up somebody to use it on something else. And I will never, when you get your sonic branding guidelines, you get your notation. My composers write it out so that if someday some other composer, some of the brands are big, some of the brands want to do something, sometimes they check with us, we write out the notation for you It's like the sheet music, so that you have it. That's my position. And I probably represent 1 to 2% of the industry. But that's why we're where we're at. And we love what we do. We're very passionate about it. We can take somebody from an idea to an entire fleet of a cruise line, because we have technical experts, we have optimization experts, we have compositional experts, branding experts, and we can not just say, oh, we're going to do this for you, and then you can't put the app in. We'll tell you, hey, you now have this sound logo that we're going to give to somebody. You know what? Open your call center with it. When people call up, just have that, if that's what you have, put that tone at the beginning. Or open an app with it. Open a podcast with it. We're not looking to just leave you, like our relationships go on and on and on for many, many years. So in answer to your question, that's the situation. Pete has sonic branding. And I'll tell you a very quick anecdote so we don't use too much time. But when we first launched it, Pete texted me or emailed me and said, make sure you're on time for when we open. And I thought like we did something wrong, I was like, oh, what does he want me making sure to be there right on time? And he had a live band playing the sonic branding. It was really cool. It was really, really cool. So we make it fun because we're so passionate about it. I didn't think it was a hard process for the client end. Has anybody taken away some knowledge that you now know more about sonic branding? And the difference between that and just a logo or a jingle, because you may not be the one to do it, but you're going to listen to your stuff now, and we line up, when we start with a brand, we line up their assets, and they're so disconnected, you know what I mean? They don't even sound like they're coming from the same brand. I'm going to make these little movies, right? And I'm going to have like the person talking one voice to one person, and then in another voice to another person, and another voice to another person. It's going to be like, you don't talk in different voices. Why should your brand? And the reason I bring this up is a lot of you work in voice, and I work in voice too. That voice to align with the brand is just as important as the sound, as the music. When we did the Jaybird, which are the in-ear buds, and I don't have them with me. No, I do. They're in my bag. But we did it in, I think we did those in like 15 languages. I think the one you have, I think we did 10 languages. And then we have another one, YouTube Kids, I think we did in 20 languages. Very, very, very careful when you use language, because it's very tricky, and make sure that somebody professional checks it, because we've caught things that people say, oh no, we got an office in France, we've got an office in India, we've got an office here, we'll get them translated. And then we get a call from, because I'm going to get them checked anyway, whether they pay us or not, because I'm not going to put 1 million products out with something locked in and then find out that there's a problem. And I've had 4 instances that could have really been disastrous. So be careful with that. But the other thing is that treat the voice that it needs to align. So let me get back to Jaybird. Jaybird is in earbuds. We did music. Then we did all these different languages for the product. And then people really loved it. So what we did after that was we did music on hold. And the voice we used was the voice that's the American voice that's in the product. And then we wrote a piece of music that feels along the line of all the other work that we did. And then in Australia, they put it on hold, and it's got brand messaging in it too, but it's got the voice. We've also done a lot of selecting and vetting voices that were then going to be the synthetic voices for some of the biggest products in the world. And the reason that we vet them, is because we don't want to ever see our client embarrassed by getting a talent and then finding out that there's something we should have known about the person. They're going to be a reflection of the brand if the brand becomes super popular and they become known. So there's a lot that goes on. When we do music, when we're doing supervision, which is music supervision, is using other people's music. So I'm doing the Olympics, there's a story, and we're picking the different music for the story. We'll check the lyrics 4 different times. I call them scrubbing the lyrics, because you don't want there to be any one thing in there that can possibly hurt or insult anybody. Remember that the voices that you're creating don't live in a silo. They're going to, especially as we keep rolling down this world, you can read all the articles that are out on sonic branding. We're going from voice first to sound first. Sound is very, very important. It gives us signals. It can communicate a lot of different things, and we build intuition into them. So you should be able to hear that sound and know something's wrong. They're not all at the same, some sounds are heard 100 times, some sounds are heard once. We weigh them. You don't want a sound that someone's going to hear 100 times. And if I was doing a presentation for you right now, I would show you what that sounded like. We want to make sure that they're balanced, and then you have different types of sounds. So you have the opening and the logo and the flourish, and then you have your navigation sounds. These tiny little sounds. Every single sound doesn't have to be like off the walls. So there's a lot that goes into it. But when you do the initiative, after that, it's really cost effective. It's really easy to do because we have all the pieces of the puzzle. And you have the pieces of the puzzle. So we can take instruments out, swap instruments in. We could change them for different countries. We could change them for different demographics. So when you're creating your voices, remember that they're part of a holistic family that they are going to be part of, which is music, sound, voice, vibration, and make sure that the whole of what you're doing sounds connected. Doesn't have to be identical, but the logo usually stays, the same. The different background musics and everything else. Pete can play you all his different versions. We had the Voice Global and different global sounds to it, and we're going to do special stuff for 2022. It's been a wonderful experience, and that's what I want to say. So do you have any questions? Was this helpful to anybody? And as my students tell me, all right, Audrey, now I can never listen to things the same again. Every time I go in a store, I'm listening. Is it suiting the environment? Every time I sit in a restaurant, I'm listening to it. And so I give you a little fun assignment. Brand yourself. Write down what you stand for and find music or sound that you think fits you. And my students will never come in with one thing because they'll say, well, you know, I'm very quiet, very reserved, but I have this side of me that has this real passion, you know, and I go out to clubs and everything else. But I came from Korea and I have my tradition. So there's this traditional side to me. If you take those things and we blend them together, we find which sound that they like the best, and we blend them together like building a custom pair of shoes, that's how you get a sound that only belongs to you.